Hey, trigger warning, Scrappy-Doo. I love him right now, you might not. I'll do my best to make him tolerable for you. We've been stuck in the 70s for a lot of this year on the channel, and I just mixed things up with some 2000s fun. But you know what also isn't the 70s? The 80s. Right. I thought I'd throw a curveball and talk about the new Scooby-Doo Mysteries, which aired in 1984. That weird transitional period where Hanna-Barbera was switching between hand-painted cells and digital coloring that was then transferred to tape and now permanently looks hideous. This was the series right before we went into the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo and shook things up more, by the way, as far as the timeline. As for this one, not an easy series to track down, being the second season of the new Scooby and Scrappy-Doo show, which they renamed for some reason. Neither season has had a complete home video release, only episodes here and there on compilation sets. It was streaming for free on Dooby for a good while, and then it got purged like most of Warner's classic animation on streaming, so that's nice. If you can't find these episodes, I don't blame you, it's not easy. Some of them are not legally available anymore. And because it's a harder show to find, it's also one I've never seen in full. Some of these I've personally never seen at all because they were not offered to me by Warner in any consumable way growing up. So I'm inviting you to either come and re-experience them with me as I learn what is up with these 13 episodes, or experience them new with me as well. It's one of those shows where it has 13 episodes, but they're 2 segments each, so it's like 26 12-minute episodes, but also some of them are 2-parters and thus normal length, so you do have like a few regular episodes. If you want me to talk about the first season as well, the new Scooby and Scrappy-Doo show, maybe I'll do a video on that one as well. I already sort of covered an episode of it before a few years ago. This season is just more famously elusive and strange in the vibe it gives me, so I'm starting here. Before anyone fully writes this one off, this series has a lot of names of creatives who worked on it that Scooby fans will recognize from other projects. Many episodes with story by Tom Ruegger, who was also involved with 13 Ghosts and developed and produced a pup named Scooby-Doo. You'll also find some by Glenn Leopold, who worked on tons of Scooby, but most importantly later went on to write Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island and Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. Before we start, I want to note, however, I am a liar and we will only be going into most of the 13 episodes. For example, I will not be covering 2 of the 2-part episodes in this video, A Halloween Hassle at Dracula's Castle and the Nutcracker Scoob, as I've already done dedicated videos breaking them down before, and they don't need to be repeated here. They're also the most famous and well-known episodes of the show, so that means you're getting the real obscure ones this time. I'll also be skipping Showboat Scooby and the Dooby Doo, as I cover both pretty fully in my family tree video. You can likewise find out about them over in that one after this if you haven't seen it. This one is going to be longer, so I do appreciate your likes, your views, and so on. Now take my hand so we can gently go into these uncharted waters together. Episode 1, Happy Birthday, Scooby-Doo, originally aired September 8th, 1984 on ABC. Fitting for the title, this episode also aired in time for Scooby-Doo's 15th anniversary. Crazy to think we were just celebrating 50 and are close to 60 years now. This episode is also notable in finally bringing Fred and Velma back as characters after the last miniseries had gotten rid of them in favor of the Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy dynamic alone. The two last appeared 4 years earlier in the finale of the original Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo series, which itself is a really strong 15 episodes and one stinker. The downside to Velma's return is, like her last appearance in that show, she is voiced by Marla Frumpkin, who I also mentioned the last time I spoke about a lot of these episodes. To be less mean, she sounds bad. She does not sound good. Yeah. With the 2 of them normally gone, our gang is made up of Daphne, Shaggy, Scooby, and Scrappy, as I said, in this particular season referred to as the Scooby-Doo Detective Agency. This is also one of the 2-parters, so it's a true full episode we get to look at here. Additionally, this is another one of the episodes you can at least still easily get on home video, regardless of streaming situations, either from the 2017 Happy Spook Day Scooby-Doo DVD, or the 50-episode 50th anniversary DVD set. Let's get into it.
Scooby-Doo, where are you? Come on, Scooby, where you been? Scooby-Dooby-Doo, looking for you. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you?
Let's address it. This intro sequence is very incredibly 80s with some touches of Michael Jackson. The sound really just hits you in the face.
We now return with Scooby and Scrappy-Doo.
It was a dark and stormy night, many such cases, as the Mystery Machine is driving down the road. It's just these guys though, I don't fully know how it worked out that they got custody of the van.
Hello. 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 Hello.
The phones in the van, how they answered them, I have many questions. Why did Daphne change the color of her hairband? That's one too. The calls are about a robbery at the TV station, so they lock in except Scooby, who's back here dressed like this for some reason.
Happy birthday, dear Scooby.
Ah, there, the reason is his birthday. Also, not sure if it's just the DVD copy or what, but the weird jump to him dancing again and then back is really odd. I can excuse some Scrappy negativity today, because he doesn't even bother to remember his uncle's birthday, and worse, Shaggy and Daphne don't get it either, even when he decides to go full diaper, which is a choice. Scoob looks all around for presents they might have hid, but it really seems like there's nothing except the weird rubber stuff Scrappy is making. Also, how do they not only have like a whole kitchen, but this whole office-looking area all in the back of the van? They arrive at the station, where the video equipment was stolen by a howling ghoul, and it does appear that he's here, looking like Red Skull from Captain America's Rogues Gallery. God, what is up with the fugly black shoes on Daphne too? What was she going through in 1984?
My Uncle Scooby will go. He's not yellow.
Yes, I am.
Bro believes his birthday, but it falls on deaf ears, leaving him to sing happy birthday to himself amongst the creepy eyes. His biggest fright, however, is that nobody forgot this was a surprise party, though weirdly singing it to the tune of Frère Jacques, probably just to be extra copyright safe. They explain that they made up the ghoul and everything to get him here. Mark Winkendale, parody of the late 80s game show host Wink Martindale, then hands him a book saying, "Here is your life, Scooby-Doo," also a parody of the TV series This Is Your Life. They sing him a whole song and give him the royal treatment, and he's so overwhelmed he faints, but nothing a little birthday cake can't fix. Mark, however, pulls him back to watch some childhood flashbacks, Shaggy in this one giving George Lopez flashbacks realness. While they get frightened again, the actual manifested ghoul sabotages things, almost splatting Uncle Scooby. But next, we have a mystery guest.
Do you remember this voice?
Jinkies!
It's Velma.
I actually don't remember this voice. Marla Frumpkin does not sound like Velma. It makes this moment so weirdly bizarre. This also is the first time in Scooby history that Velma is assigned the last name Dinkley, so there's that. Turns out she's an apprentice research scientist for NASA now that she's left the gang, for whatever reason. We have another guest though.
Let's split up, gang.
Now that voice I do know. We're finally cooking. While Scooby takes Fred down, Mark assigns him a last name for the first time as well. However, it's Fred Rogers, which would not only be a bad idea because Fred Rogers exists, but also that's Shaggy's last name already by this time. He's apparently an aspiring mystery author now. Scrap and Daph find a screwdriver and loose screws, proving sabotage up here, wondering who would do this, as Fred brings up the supposed greatest mystery, the Red Skull curse case, where a wealthy socialite unknowingly bought a cursed necklace. The gang investigate and end up in a graveyard, Scooby walking on two legs for a very long and off-putting amount of time, and after a scuffle, they unmasked the Red Skull to be the socialite's butler, who threatened revenge someday. The end. The socialite is even here, making this really weird run, and we also get a whole shot of her underoos for some reason when she jumps in this dog's arms. While the others realize Fred is missing, Mark asks if the Red Skull was really so scary, and Scooby huffs and puffs for show until the real Red Skull threatens them from the TV and jumps out.
We now continue with Scooby and Scrappy Doo.
The Red Skull yowls, steals the necklace, Scrappy swings in to knock Bro down, and poor Scoob ends up at the ghoul's mercy. The others watch in horror as Scrappy pulls out the pink rubber stuff he had earlier, saving Scooby like a trampoline. The socialite is in tears, but I'm more worried about Daphne's height and posture here. Fred shows back up asking what he missed now that the Red Skull is gone, now missing his ascot as the director asks suspiciously about his whereabouts. Everyone decides to split up and look for clues, Velma bribing Scoob by promising his birthday presents are backstage.
The perpetrator may have utilized the superstructure's atmospheric control system to extricate himself.
Yeah, whatever she said. They fall through the vent system and come out the other side, finding this orange cloth that looks like an ascot. Then getting scared the Red Skull found them, only for it to be Fred. He then recognizes the cloth as his own ascot, saying he must have lost it when washing his face, but doesn't know how it got in the vent. He then excuses himself saying he forgot his briefcase there as well, leaving Scrappy suspicious. Scoob meanwhile searches for his presents and gets a spook from the Red Skull, and reliable as always, he disguises himself in drag as a TV chef before escaping. The girls are speaking to the police chief who got a call from Fred Jones, now accurately giving him the actual last name he's canonically had ever since this moment. The boys run in screaming about what just happened, so Scrappy goes to attack the Red Skull and comes out yet again with Fred. Inside his briefcase he found are screws just like the ones they found earlier, so Scrappy uses his computer watch he has somehow to input all the clues. Obviously they point to Fred, so the chief has to arrest him, and he makes a run for it. The boys assume safety on the roof in the storm, only for old Red Skull to show up anyway, trapping getting them as high as it goes, and leaving them hanging when they fall. Love the whelp remaining to communicate. Fred insists on his innocence as the others look up and see the sign, realizing the Red Skull is up there. Just as he's about to drop the boys to their doom, everyone rushes through the door, and lightning strikes the Ghoul, now hanging onto them. Mark celebrates Scoob saving the necklace again and catching the Red Skull, who's unmasked to be the director of the show. He tries to say it was just to liven up the program and he was going to return the necklace, but Daff calls him out on trying to set up Fred and get rid of Scooby, putting out he had plenty of years to be planning this revenge, unmasking him a second time to reveal the butler who committed the original crime. Everyone then sings their bizarro version of Happy Birthday to Scooby proper, who then swallows just about the whole thing.
Happy birthday to me, Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
And that's Happy Birthday, Scooby-Doo. It's definitely an episode of Scooby-Doo. I don't know that I personally would have put it on that 50-episode collection DVD where you can only have 50 and this took a spot from a better or more iconic episode, but I can see the historical value it has in Scooby lore. It's a sort of anniversary episode, it's the reintroduction of Fred and Velma while also finally giving them permanent last names, and it's the premiere double-length episode for this last hurrah of Scooby and Scrappy shows before the franchise finally got freshened up by the 13 Ghosts. I hadn't seen this one, or I don't remember it, so I did almost think Fred might have done it, and maybe it was to further the surprise for Scooby. But they did set up the director, like with him acting so suspicious toward Fred to drive things that direction right off the bat. Marla Frempkin, per usual, is unpleasant as Velma, but thankfully she does not have too much to say or do in this one. I can't say the same for one of our later episodes. Lots of weird animation quirks on display here, and I don't understand what happened to Daphne. She has her normal outfit colors in the theme song in other episodes. I don't want to spend too much time though. This show does have 26 12-minute segments, so let's keep moving. Episode 2, Part 1, Scooby's Peep-Hole Pandemonium, originally aired September 15th, 1984. We open up at this large building, Peep-Hole Publications blog, and make our way to the publisher of the magazine, Orson Kane. This guy is a parody of the character Charles Kane from the 1941 Orson Welles film Citizen Kane, a character played by Orson Welles himself, hence the name Orson Kane. This time the gang are newly appointed reporters working for Kane here at Peep-Hole Publications blog. He shows them the first celebrity he wants them to look into, Scooby first seeing a werewolf, and Scrappy recognizing the woman to be Norma Deathman, the name being a play on Norma Desmond, the has-been classic film star who wants another chance in the 1950 film Sunset Boulevard. Norma Deathman here similarly is a former horror movie queen. She retired after the 1933 film in the photo, and no one's seen her since. Kane wants them to get through her home heavily guarded by monsters to get a photo of her, setting it up so they'll be attending her birthday party. We find the van out front, Norma playing her organ as she has her butler Franklin Stein enter, as well as the newly hired maid mummy. All that's left is the caterers. The maid mummy opens the door, of course, to the boys in disguise, who then misgender her. Daphne forces them in anyway, Scrappy following to introduce their catering business. Norma quite likes their creepy name, and has Franklin show the boys around. The other two help set the table with the finest bone china, the camera being hidden with their catering wagon, though the wolf seems onto them. The boys are then shown the food where we get a few food gags here and there. The wolf gets into the wagon, while Daphne realizes the maid mummy set the silverware wrong, and upon closer inspection, something's odd with that mummy. Scrappy reaches in to get the camera and is met with the wolf, snapping a photo to blind him, but also tipping off and upsetting Norma. The boys aren't doing any better in the kitchen, however, Franklin catching onto them as well. The four meet in the middle as both sides chase them, so they have to run into the Chamber of Horrors. Norma says the room specifically is full of items from her old horror films that they now plan to inflict on them. Daff and Scrap hide here, with the boys in these suits, where the dust ends up upsetting Norma enough to get her to leave. The maid mummy dusts them and of course causes Scooby to sneeze and expose them from here. The gang end up in the game room next, which Norma seems pleased by. Instead, we're hit with Family Ghoul, a parody of the game show Family Feud. We then have both sides excited to be playing the game on this little side quest for a while, until Norma catches on. They dash into what seems to be Norma's bedroom now, the safe looking to be recently emptied, and Daphne has an idea about by who. Daff and Scrap duck under the bed, while the boys run to the closet and find they aren't alone, piling out with the maid mummy. Norma congratulates her on stopping them, but Daphne pops out to say it's the other way around, exposing the jewels taken by her. Daphne then unmasks her to reveal publisher Orson Kane himself, having hired them to get a story and keep everyone distracted while he stole these jewels. But between the silverware and men's shoes exactly like Kane's under the wrapping, just overall a poor job. Norma wants to repay them for saving her jewels, and Scrappy asks to just see her face once. She obliges, revealing she hasn't aged a day in these 5 decades away. And how does she do it? Obviously she's a vampire. This birthday celebration was for her 300th birthday, and she wants them for dinner. The four decide to take a rain check though and haul out in the van. And that's Scooby's Peep-Hole Pandemonium. Definitely a more oddball episode. It already starts strange with them randomly taking jobs as reporters, and then we have what sometimes often occurs in this era, which is actual real monsters, even with a fake one here as well. Definitely not everyone's cup of tea with the franchise. I like the idea of Norma though. Her design is kind of generic for this type of role, but she eats anyway. Or more so, she drinks. Blood, that is. Even so, I think this episode is more of a time waster and forgettable as far as this era goes, but I'd still put it pretty high anyway. If you haven't seen this one, you really aren't missing anything special, but there are a few good moments here and there. Nothing of great historical importance or entertainment, but it's pretty fine. This episode also currently has not been on any home video, which isn't terribly shocking. Let's see how the second half of the episode fares. Episode 2 Part 2 is titled The Hand of Horror. This one has made it to home video on the 2013 DVD set 13 Spooky Tales, Ruh-Roh Robot.
We now continue with Scooby and Scrappy Doo.
The gang are headed for some pizza when they head past a detour road closed sign without realizing it. As they almost hit a wall, it seems that they've ended up lost. This man, Ratfield, leaves the estate of the Von Gizmo twins after being fired. He wants the gang to stay away from the two of them as they're mad, which only piques their curiosity. The boys decide they'll just head back to the van and order the food for here. No anchovies. While this disembodied hand opens the door for everyone. The pizza comes pretty quick at least, except it has anchovies. While everyone looks around, the hand shows up to spook them, the Von Gizmo twins also appearing at last. They're definitely kooky, accusing the gang of spying on them when Daphne asks for directions, one of them ordering everyone to leave as they'll never have his invention, while the other twin apologizes. Daphne stops Shaggy from leaving though, as the invention part caught her attention, deciding they need to split up and investigate. On their end, the hand starts crawling inside Shaggy's clothes and tickling him, and Scooby also crawls in to try to help. The pizza delivery guy makes it back, but the hand lassos it away and the guy heads back. Then it rolls them up and drops them down a trap door, where Shaggy knocks over a box full of whatever these are. The hand now follows the other two, and as the delivery guy returns again, it switches the pizza once more. They hear the twins arguing and go investigate, while Shaggy figures out he found a remote control, which is what actually controls these hands. He sends the hand to go get the pizza and finally brings it back to them at last, then even has it set the table and everything for them. Their dinner is unfortunately interrupted by some moaning and groaning, so Shaggy uses the hand to find a door and starts to charge at it, only for Scoob to have the hand open it instead. Inside the room, they find one of the twins asking for help. Elsewhere, these two find the quarreling twins in the middle of something. One saying he'll make millions, then correcting himself to say we'll. One of them takes control of a hand, but the one with the boys also uses a hand to smash the wall. And when the other one says he'll take care of the intruders, the rescued twin sends his hand to stop him. Everything out in the open, it's obvious one of the twins is a fake and switch places to uncover the secret of the hands. Scrappy gets a good whiff of one and unmasks Ratfield, no shocker there, who came back and tied the other brother up to switch places, and gain control of the army of hands. Scrappy rescues one of the controls, but Ratfield picks him up, tossing it to Shaggy next, leaving the two in a battle for who the hands will obey. Finally, Ratfield pins everyone down so that Shaggy can't access the controller, but Mr. Puppy Power is small enough to still run over and snatch the control, freeing everyone and sending the hands after the rat. It seems everything is wrapped up, just leaving the pizza that for the 80th time tonight is being redelivered. The hand's there to greet the delivery guy with everyone else. And that's the Hand of Horror. Yeah, this is another weird one. There's hardly even a Hand of Horror. There's nothing really scary in this episode. The hand isn't really threatening at all. And once it turns out to be robotic, it's definitely not scary. Not really a threatening or memorable villain, likewise for Ratfield himself. The twins aren't all that memorable or exciting either. With only 11 minutes, we don't have much grasp about whatever it is they are really even doing here with these hands, or anything else. Daphne and Scrappy also don't have all that much to do this time until the end. There are some enjoyable moments and gags, but I'd say the second half of this episode is really a lot more unremarkable and uninteresting than the first half, which at least had some interesting things going for it. This one is more of the kind that you could easily forget as soon as you saw it. Not a fan of it. I'm surprised they put this one on a DVD, but it was clearly robot themed, so I guess they were really scraping to find 13 episodes with some kind of robot technically featured. Let's see about the third episode's two stories and if those are any better. Episode 3, Part 1, Scoo-Be or Not Scoo-Be. Originally aired September 22nd, 1984. I'll be honest with you, pal. I only really thought about this episode for the first time recently, because Jada recently decided to include the Sea Demon villain from the episode in their upcoming second wave of collector Scooby-Doo figures. I thought it was kind of odd to include a more obscure villain and episode instead of one of the iconic ones so early in the line, so maybe we'll uncover what's so special about him. If you look at the Scooby-Doo encyclopedia that I made a video about before, this Sea Demon is even one of the villains that they chose to put on the spine, so clearly he's considered somewhat prominent more than I ever realized. This episode did also get included on the 2015 DVD Scooby-Doo Favorite Frights, so there's that. Now obviously I don't have to say that the title is a reference to the line "to be or not to be" from William Shakespeare's Hamlet. Expect a lot of Hamlet or general Shakespeare references in the episode. The gang are dumped out of their cheapo European tour bus, and
If it's Saturday, this must be Denmark.
this is a reference to the 1969 film If It's Tuesday, This Must Be Belgium. They're here to stay in an old castle where the prince was said to live, and kept seeing ghosts according to Scrappy. They spot the castle hotel, specifically named Hotel Hamlet because, of course, where they meet manager Rosie Crans and her caretaker Yorick. Her name is a play off of Rosencrantz from Shakespeare's Hamlet, and likewise Yorick is the name of Hamlet's old jester, of whom he finds the skull of. We then meet Gilly Stern, assistant manager, who once again is a play off Hamlet character Guildenstern. While they help with the bags and show them around, a ghost also shows up to make them feel really at home. He warns them to beware the briny boo, and when they run to tell the others, Gilly says it's the ghost of Hamlet, like in the play. York shows up to say, actually, and corrects them that Hamlet sees his father's ghost, though his father's name technically was also Hamlet, but Scrappy's sure Uncle Scooby will be fine either way. Not great luck will be staying in room 13 though. The boys head to the kitchen for a late night snack later, where ghostly Hamlet warns them like earlier, running back to pack their bags.
Last one out is something rotten in Denmark.
Obviously, another reference to Hamlet with the famous quote, "Something is rotten in the state of Denmark." Rosie dismisses their claims, and a hand in the plant offers a newspaper to Scoob, which says an oil rig reports sightings of sea demon, rigs losing oil, and they even have a photo of the sea demon. Makes him easy to identify now when he pops up to scare them. Trying to run off, they see spooky Hamlet again, who says to follow him. They actually do it, and he points while giving the same warning to beware the briny boo, then vanishes. Scrappy pulls out his infrared fogoscope that he just has lying around, looking out to see a ship, then a boat where someone's operating a winch and boom. Shaggy wondering if it's the sea demon, the ghastly green thing pops back out, and running off, Daff and Scrap trip over a pipe that goes out to the sea where the boat was, and goes into the castle sewer. The sea demon meanwhile corners the boys, and they find a copy of Hamlet, so when the demon pops in, they're all ready to put on the play for him.
Scooby or not Scooby? Now that's the $1,000 question, you know.
Scooby even pops out in drag as Ophelia, though it's giving more Mae West, honestly. And here comes the ghost, scaring off the demon.
Quick exit, stage left.
Okay, Snagglepuss. The two run down and trip over the pipe where the others are investigating, where they follow up to the pipes, stopping at some tanks. Those tanks upon inspection are full of oil, and Daphne is wild for putting her finger in it and smelling. They realize the oil is being piped to that tanker out there. Clearly the missing oil they read about, and out pops old Greenie, who chases them out, but Scrappy takes a fishnet and tosses it on him. Daphne unmasks him to reveal Rosie. Except that there's another sea demon at large. The ghost shows up again, however, and as the sea demon says he gives up, the ghost unmasks him to be Gilly. He and Rosie were running this operation together. Scrappy then asks who Old Spooky is, who then unmasks himself, revealing Yorick. He knew what the others were doing, but nobody would believe him, so he had to become someone that couldn't be ignored.
Oil's well, it ends well.
One last Shakespeare reference for the road, off of All's Well That Ends Well. And that's Scooby or Not Scoo-Be. Definitely an interesting one, and better than the last two at least. The sea demon though, it's not a horrible design, but I wouldn't say it's memorable, and I wouldn't say the episode is either. It's still a little lost on me why they chose this to be one of the next figures, instead of someone more iconic. I don't hate him, I get why people like him, but the episode is kind of an unremarkable 12 minutes. The gimmick is definitely all of the Shakespeare references, which I guess might be funny or interesting if you're a huge Shakespeare buff, though I don't know how many people in the child target audience would fit that, and I don't really get how this sea demon fits that aesthetic either. It's another episode where it's fairly obvious who the villains are, because there's just not anyone else that could be when we only have 12 minutes of time, so there isn't all that much surprise beyond the ghost being York, maybe. If you have to watch one of the 12-minute episodes of this show, I suppose you can't go all that wrong with this one. I'd probably put it up on the higher side for now with some fun gags and not being boring. Let's see how the second half of the episode checks out. Episode 3, Part 2 is titled The Stoney Glare Stare. This one made it to DVD as well, though separately on the 2013 DVD 13 Spooky Tales, Run for Your Rife.
We now continue with Scooby and Scrappy Doo.
We open up with the gang vacationing in the Greek islands. However, Daphne reminds them that they're here to do a story on the mask of Medusa. Scrappy catches us up on her being the woman with snakes for hair that can turn people into stone with a look, and that her mask can do the same. Daphne also seems to have gone back to the ugly black shoes for some reason. They pass by Blimp Island, home of infamous villain Thaddeus Blimp, but they're headed for Cyclops Island. Funny that Cyclops Island has 2 eyes. Blimp and his henchman Wilmer seem to be watching them though, hoping to take the mask himself to turn the world's figures into stone, as well as his enemies, which include includes Scooby for some reason. The two of them both resemble the antagonists of the 1941 film The Maltese Falcon, while some feel they also resemble Mr. Rourke and Tattoo from the 70s TV series Fantasy Island. The gang meet Professor Mikos, who allowed them to attend the event, being the first people to enter the fortress of the Cyclops in centuries. The Cyclops supposedly guarded the mask, so they believe they'll find it inside here, but somehow they lose the professor while inside. Instead, they find the Cyclops, who seems to still be active on the job. They hide in the dark and, with some light, find a ton of people who've been turned to stone. Daphne running into the professor as well, though he seems to have gone bald for some reason. Scrappy tries to photograph a tablet, which falls and breaks, but they do have the picture to see what it said, which Scrappy can apparently translate because his watch has a translator. Apparently the mask is beneath the fountain in the cave of the Cyclops on Cyclops Mountain, but the Cyclops warns them to never go there. Scrappy grabs the professor on the way out, smashing through the wall with him, which could have gone worse, and end up in the taverna next door owned by this woman, Anna. She paid the professor to make mini statues like the one he seems to have turned into and regrets it, finding them all to be junk, and she faints when she finds out this one is the actual professor himself. Blimp and his henchmen pose as waiters, while Anna worries about the gang going somewhere dangerous like the cave. Scoob runs to ask about something in the kitchen and realizes the waiter is Blimp, so everyone decides to rush off and get to the cave before him. The Cyclops shows up for a dance before they can make it out though. Heading up to Cyclops' cave, which again has two eyes, the gang are still being followed by Blimp, but also Anna, who seems to be worried. Daphne finds the fountain and starts pulling stones, but the Cyclops and Blimp show up to stop them, Shaggy and the two dogs finding themselves in a scuffle that ends with falling on the fountain. Daphne sees the mask of Medusa, but Blimp snatches it away and tries to turn everyone to stone. Realizing it seems to be fake, Scooby thinks otherwise and shines light through it, turning everyone to stone as a result, just as Anna shows up. She tells him to turn it around and shine the light again to reverse it, saving everyone except for the professor. Scoob even gives Shaggy a big ol' kiss. And why did the professor not change back? Daphne unmasks the Cyclops to reveal it was him the whole time, his hair still present, saying that Blimp put him up to it. Daphne points out the lack of hair was one of the biggest tells that was just another one of his bad statues like he made for Anna. While the dogs run off, Anna reveals she was someone they were attempting to throw off as well, as her occupation is just a cover, working for Greek secret intelligence in reality, trying to capture Blimp for a while. He snatches the mask and tries to run off, but the Cyclops stops him, he and the henchmen running into Shaggy's arms in fear. Now safe, the Cyclops disrobes, just being the doggy boys.
Scooby-Doo!
And Scrappy-Doo too!
And that's the Stoney Glare Stare. I don't think this one is quite as strong as the first half. The Cyclops isn't quite as memorable as it could be with the completely white design, and Blimp and his henchmen aren't really very intimidating. The professor's involvement, regardless of being put up to it, also is fairly obvious. Anna adds a little more to the episode, and it's interesting that the gang seem to definitely be famous as far as this series goes, but the overall whole isn't especially funny, intriguing, or exciting, so this half probably wouldn't rank on the higher end of episodes for this series for me. I could probably see myself revisiting the Sea Demon episode, but I don't know that I would be running to check this one out again later. Let's see what the fourth episode has going on.
It's not a myth, it's a mifter!
Episode 4, Part 1, Mission Undoable, originally aired September 29th, 1984. The title is obviously a reference to the hit 60s TV series Mission Impossible, with a lot of other references to that in the episode itself later. We're back to another episode that's never graced home video this time. The episode opens up committing to the bit with the Undoable mission team. The gang dressed like this. Agent Doo makes contact via the fire hydrant where he gets the rundown of the evil mastermind they're trying to stop, situated near the Statue of Liberty and hoping to control the world's satellites. He decides to accept the mission, and like in Mission Impossible, the hydrant self-destructs. Over at Lady Liberty, the gang try to blend in with the tourists, Scooby blending in too well and falling down onto this very upset groundskeeper. He then calls in the suspicious-looking kids. They choose to split up, the boys running over to a pizza stand where a woman says a ridiculous order meant to be the password to the evil lair and is sent down a trapdoor. The boys, of course, also choose the ridiculous order and are sent down as well, mistaking it for an arcade. The villainous mastermind appears on the screen, and they have to try and help fix his transponder beam to keep him happy. Daff and Scrap, meanwhile, want to check the torch of Lady Liberty, but the guide says it's off limits. They spot the same pizza stand, which the groundskeeper takes note of. While the boys continue to do dirty work, Scrappy asks for the order he expected the boys to want, and they also get dumped down, and Daphne immediately realizes what's going on as the only sane person person in the group. Up in the torch, the boys are forced to do more work, and talk the robot watching over them into believing it could be a star, doing a whole song and dance. The other two look at blueprints and realize the beam is in the torch, and they see the boys on the screen. The mastermind catches on, so they dip out, but more robots are sent to catch them, running all over. Daphne finds a cable and starts following it, finding the mastermind behind a curtain just like in The Wizard of Oz. They unmask him and find the tour guide, who runs off to start the beam himself. With the torch entrance still locked, Scrappy gets to work and forces Scooby to climb the rope up, which doesn't go great. Daph finally gets the door unlocked and they try to save the boys, while the tour guide starts to put the beam in motion, but the boys snap back, crash the door, and destroy the beam. The mastermind and his spies are arrested, and another day is saved thanks to Agent Doo. They find the groundskeeper was actually an undercover cop, communicating with the others about the situation. The robot also is ready for his big finish, singing us off. And that's Mission Undoable. It's definitely an episode of this series. I can't exactly call it boring, but I also can't say it's a favorite. It really does commit to the bit. This is the gang, but also they aren't the gang. They really are this secret agent team for some reason. This just isn't the kind of episode that I like. I'm not personally interested in this effectively alternate universe kind of stuff to this degree. The mastermind isn't really threatening despite what he's trying to do. It doesn't feel like there's any real tension with him, and discounting his unmasked identity, he doesn't have a name as much as it doesn't feel like his operation has any kind of real depth to it either. This just feels like a true filler episode. The robot song and dance is kind of silly and fun, but I think this one's got to be low on my ranks for this show. It's mostly forgettable. I can understand why people hate the Scrappy era when I'm watching some of these now. Even though he's good when he's good, I don't even think he's the problem here. The problem is just weird and lackluster writing. Let's check out the second half. Episode 4, Part 2 is titled The B-Team. Similar to the first half, this one is a parody of another TV show, this time The A-Team. There's even a character, Mr. BLT, who's a parody of cast member Mr. T from that show, and the general feel is meant to be reminiscent of that series. This second half, however, did make it to DVD on 2013's 13 Spooky Tales, Ruh-Roh Robot Again.
We now continue with Scooby and Scrappy Doo.
We start with the television program, The Z-Team. The dogs are watching it in the back of the van, where they have a whole working TV. Scoop puts on a wig to match Mr. BLT, but hearing they're on their way to the bee-in-your-bonnet honey farm to investigate renegade bees, his bravery is gone. They make it to Honeydale, and at the gas station, the owner warns them not to go to the farm because of the bees, but does give them directions. Mr. Stinger shows them the damage the bees have done, and the boys try to get some of the honey, but the bees are not having it. Mr. Stinger says these aren't the killer bees to have to worry about, though, pointing to the real threat. The bees aim right for them, and then fly away with the hives yet again. The gang look around, spotting them on the radar, until they disappear, because they're above them. They even lift up the van so that all 4 tires are wrecked. The sheriff pulls up to see if they need help, saying the bees took the squad car yesterday, and she's been looking into the honey the farm is making, which she finds to be terrible for eating, but good as fuel for her bike. She drives them to the gas station, the owner asking if they need help with the flat tires. So while he fixes the van, the sheriff takes the gang to look at where she found the strange honey, and it definitely doesn't seem to be your typical honey setup, more of which they find leaking out of containers. The labels upon reading say danger, experimental rocket fuel, exploding poor Scooby away and into space before he crashes back down. So there it is, secret rocket fuel factory, not a honey farm. The sheriff goes to report it and tells them not to screw things up, but Daphne has those black shoes again, so too late. Mr. Stinger shows back up and they reveal they're onto what's really going on, but before he can explain, the bees return. 2 of them crash, so Daphne unmasks them to reveal bee suits and jetpacks inside, one of them flying away with Mr. Stinger and some of the fuel. They force the boys into the jetpacks to chase after them, rescuing Mr. Stinger, but getting pursued by the bees too. Scooby's jetpack fails and he crashes into a hive, and from there, the real bees go to attack the killer ones, who are then cornered by the sheriff and backup. Mr. Stinger thanks them on his behalf, as well as his bosses at NASA, who are really behind the fuel. The killer bees are spies, being led by the gas station owner, a foreign danger who they saw working on a jetpack earlier, and knew about the flat tires before saying anything because he caused them. The sheriff gives a congratulatory pat on the back to Scoob, knocking him on another fuel container. And that's the B-Team. This one is still not my type of preferred Scooby story, but after the first half, this is an easy improvement. I still wouldn't call this one memorable, but I did find myself liking this one. The gang feel much more in character here. I liked some of the secondary characters like the sheriff. The being shot into space bit is very silly, and the killer bees aren't amazing Scooby villain material, but I suppose they work for a 12-minute episode. I don't think I would watch the previous half again anytime soon, but I could see myself enjoying this one again. I'm not afraid by this time to say some of these episodes are stinkers. I wouldn't put this on the stinker finger list exactly though. Not entirely sure why this one was on the robot-focused DVD. I wouldn't call the jetpacks robotic and the bees are guys in suits, but whatever. The gas station owner Harley also is another pretty obvious villain. This show has yet to have one of those that is surprising. That wraps up the 4th episode though. Let's see what the 5th one might have to offer.
Anything that tastes that terrible on my flapjacks ain't honey. Honey.
Episode 5, Part 1, Doom Service. Originally aired October 6, 1984. This is yet another episode that made it to DVD by way of Rutro Robot again. This also is where the show went from beautiful hand-painted cells shot on film to digital ink and paint that's then transferred to tape in 1984 when this was still extremely new to be doing. So the rest of the show is going to look a lot more like Doo-Doo from here.
We now continue with Scooby and Scrappy Doo.
The gang are on their way to Overview Hotel to solve a mystery, Shaggy reading about it in a book about ghosts in the Rocky Mountains. Up ahead is the Western Air Command Base, which the boys would prefer, but they make it to the hotel anyway. But for a big hotel, it sure has an empty parking lot, and it's kind of giving the Stanley Hotel, the haunted inspiration for Stephen King's The Shining. Everyone has changed into some nice updated winter outfits, now going undercover as hotel staff while doing their ghost hunting. The boys meet the creepy owner when they go in, a portrait of him on the wall. When the others catch up, they bump into Jack Marston, who also says he's the owner. Turns out they met the ghost, the original owner Ebenezer Overview, who died 100 years ago. The boys run out in terror and bump into Sheldon Keats, famous horror novel author and occult expert, here to write a novel about the hotel. If the hotel being inspired by The Shining and Stanley Hotel wasn't obvious already, this guy is meant to be a parody of Stephen King himself. The gang next meet Mrs. Van Loon and her invisible dog, who apparently have been here for years. Dig the crazy digital transitions going on starting now. Jack hopes they can save the hotel by stopping the ghost, and assigns the very happy boys to kitchen duty, handing keys to every room to Daphne. While the boys whip up some food, Mrs. Van Loon and her invisible pooch come in to try some as well. They get a call from room service, so Scoob heads up to deliver, finding the ghost. Daphne meanwhile has those hideous black shoes again in her chambermaid outfit, but at least they match now. Scoob phones the others to come quick, but the ghost is still there, so he runs off again and finds Sheldon, the one who actually ordered the food, getting targeted by Scrappy. With Jack worried, Sheldon offers to hold a seance, while the gang investigate the room. First they uncover a secret passage, then a piece of paper that says secret, the first word in the title of Sheldon's novel he's writing. During this stormy night, the seance begins, and they hear the voice of Ebenezer ring out with a warning. Mrs. Van Loon and Sheldon decide they're done with staying here, but Daphne has an idea. The boys, however, decide heading into the storm to sleep in the van is better than being in the hotel, and yet the ghost finds them out here as well, heading out on a snowmobile that Scoob falls on. In the vents, Daphne's hunch is right, finding a tape recorder that was playing the voice earlier. They hear Scooby's voice and run out, watching him crash into the snow with a ghost. They pull the spook out and he's unmasked to reveal Mrs. Van Loon. Daphne finds the top secret paper she was trying to steal in her getaway vehicle. Being a longtime guest, she discovered the secret passage led to the new airbase and decided to steal their secrets and sell them. All entirely unrelated to Sheldon, who's pivoted to writing a book about Scooby instead. Still no explanation, however, for the invisible dog who continues to eat Scooby's food.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
And that's Doom Service. Now that's more like it. Much better than most of the last few episodes. This one feels like proper Scooby, more like what I'm looking for. Referencing actual horror and existing real-life haunts, someone in a real costume even if it's just some old guy. At least a hint of atmosphere even if there's no danger. The ghost of old Ebenezer is some impressive voice work from the voice actor as well. Mrs. Van Loon and he sharing the same voice, with her actually doing a good job at sounding like a decent old man at first. And there are just enough people here this time to not be fully certain of who it could have been. The haunting of the Stanley Hotel, whether you believe it or not, is truly a real-life scary story, and just pulling from that adds a lot to this episode. I think I would put this one high on the list of episodes from this show. Once again though, not sure how it's relevant to the robot-centered DVD. Let's see if the second half of the episode is as good. Episode 5, Part 2 is titled A Code in the Nose. Once again, this made it to DVD by way of Rutro Robot.
We now return with Scooby and Scrappy Doo.
We start with this James Bond parody immediately, and the first thing I did was groan because Mission Undoable the Same Day has taken it all out of me. We arrive at a top-secret army compound, too secret even for us to know, where this guy, Codefinger, is sneaking around. He's likely a reference to the Bond villain Goldfinger given the start of the episode. He's also voiced by Ken Sansom, who if you're like me, you probably grew up with as the voice of Rabbit and Everything Boo starting with the Mini Adventures series in the 90s. He's looking for the new top-secret government decoder, and thankfully there's a literal sign and hand pointing pointing right to it. Oops, there's actually an alarm, but he still easily gets away anyway and decides to store the decoder in a department store. Nearly 3 minutes in, we finally get to the gang, headed to said department store to exchange a broken toaster. Walking onto the welcome mat, however, they drop into the ground, falling into a room with scary government people like the head of Federal Protection. The gang still thinking they're here for the toaster. He says they've been chosen for an ultra top secret mission, the head of security catching them up to speed. They want to recruit normal people to not arouse suspicion.
Wait a minute, sir. I resent that.
Yeah, we're not normal.
Daphne asks what the decoder looks like, but it's so top secret that literally nobody knows. Beyond, it looks like an average household appliance. If they say the specific code words though, it should respond. They then shoot them back up again, leaving them to their mission of saying these phrases to every appliance they find.
Mine says, I love you more than I've ever loved anyone.
Oh, Frankie, how romantic.
They split up to cover their ground, reading off their phrases where the sales clerk greets Daphne, confused as to why she keeps saying her phrase of asking how much something is. Scooby doesn't make any more sense to him, and Shaggy mistakes this woman for the decoder and accidentally confesses love to her. The clerk starts getting fed up.
Call the police! I dare you!
They're all nuts.
Shaggy repeats his dangerous phrase and finally gets an unexpected response from a fan, accomplishing their mission, but now with the clerk on their tail with the store detective. He tries to take the fan back from them, but it turns on and somehow is powerful enough for them to fly into the air, while they all hide. We even get Daphne cross-dressing here, nice look. Unfortunately, the boys realize too late that they aren't the only ones hiding, Codefinger revealing himself and snatching the decoder. He switches it on and blows them away, while the clerk decides he is out of here. Daff and Scrap are slowed down by some gumballs, but Codefinger isn't much better off trying to go up the down escalator for some reason. He flies back, Scrappy nabs the decoder, and he runs off while the detective runs into the general who's looking for the gang. Everyone finally comes together, and the Major offers to take the decoder from Daphne, but she exposes him for really being the disguise of Codefinger, pointing out the makeup on his clothing that matches what Codefinger just crashed into. He admits it and grabs the decoder, but he trips on Scooby, who then flies them up with the fan, leaving the villain vulnerable. And that's a code in the nose. So that could have been worse, but that definitely tanked the overall episode after how strong the first half was. I was so scared at first that we were going to have another weird alternate universe thing going on, but thankfully it's just the gang getting roped into something. But that something doesn't make any sense, and all of this just doesn't feel like Scooby. This could be any random show, of which Scooby just happened to be part of today. I've seen less interesting episodes so far in this series, and I feel like I'm being mean by not liking more of them, but this is another one that is simply not my taste for a Scooby episode. We don't even know what Codefinger was really going to necessarily do with the decoder, or all that much about him despite starting the episode focused on him, and we get a strange unmasking out of it too, though at least it's somewhat of a twist. There's just too much silliness and unrealistic scenarios going on here, even for Scooby standards. This is another one I'm going to have to pass on. At least this time I can somewhat understand it being included on the robot DVD. Let's move into the 6th episode, which is another actual full-length episode this time. Episode 6, Ghosts of the Ancient Astronauts, originally aired October 13th, 1984. Fred and Velma are back again, which is great, except for Maura Frumpkin's Velma. But hey, we do have Janet Waldo in this one, yet no Mystery Machine. Being a 2-part full episode, this one of course has made it easily to DVD a few times. First in 2012 on the Scooby-Doo 13 Spooky Tales Around the World DVD, and again as a bonus feature for Return to Zombie Islands DVD, because of zombie relation I presume.
We now return with Scooby and Scrappy Doo.
A dark and stormy night at sea opens us up, the gang on a boat in this mess and in swimsuits no less. Fred's is, well, he's definitely showing a lot, yet he can't take off that damn mascot, and you know what? Somehow it makes it look even better. They're here for the South American exhibition thanks to Velma's uncle. This dude over here wants to steal some treasure meanwhile and is keeping an eye on them. Inside, Professor Cosmo Dinkley, the uncle, says they're looking through the South American jungle for the ruby called the Celestial Orb, big as a baseball, apparently the favorite sport of Scoob. Velma remarks she thought they were looking for the lost treasure of Sirius. Sirius being a Greek name rather than South American, and named after a famous mythical dog. Despite this, the episode does not make the obvious connection here, though aliens like later in the episode and dogs being mixed together has been well explored in the franchise now, especially in Mystery Incorporated with Nibiru. Professor Dinkley says they are looking for that, but first they must find the ruby, which has a map to that temple. Daphne brings up that the temple supposedly was built by ancient astronauts, and he adds that it's thought to be haunted by their ghosts. This too is no new concept these days especially. Ancient Aliens on the History Channel has been mining these ideas for nearly 300 episodes. Apparently the orb is in what's called the Cave of Death, much to the obvious excitement of the boys here. And the cave? It's in the Valley of the Zombies. The boys knock over the eavesdroppers as they dash out, the three barely hanging on. They eventually make it to land for this big adventure. Watching, however, is Harriet Mullins, voiced by Janet Waldo, following them for the orb. The boys are being calmed by some snacks when a monkey steals from Scoob, and chasing it leads the boys to fall down a hole. The professor congratulates them though, finding the entrance to the Cave of Death. Inside there are too many tunnels, so they have to choose to split up. Worse for the boys, they get trapped after a rock slide, fully separating both halves of the team. They follow a hole that leads them to a futuristic room with this stone guy holding the orb they're looking for. But Shaggy warns of setting off booby traps. Scoob finally grabs it with his mouth, but things do indeed start going wrong. All very Indiana Jones with multiple traps going off to attack them, and they just barely make it back through the hole. Just in time, the others get the rocks moved so the boys can run out, where they show their find and the professor confirms the markings will lead to the temple. The boys climb up and celebrate the freedom until the zombies pop out, everyone getting grabbed and held by one of them. The professor is cornered and confronted by Harriet. As he explains, she used to work for him as an archaeologist until he caught her stealing relics. She threatens to either give her the orb or become zombie food. He says it won't help her anyway since only he can read it, but she plans to make him cooperate. She takes him to meet a friend, while the zombies take the gang and stuff them into what seems to be a snake pit, the things surrounding them.
We now continue with Scooby and Scrappy-Doo.
Scooby starts charming the snakes, but somehow it eventually turns into a full hoedown, and before you know it, we've spent a full minute of the episode dancing with snakes. The gang are still in these outfits, mind you. From inside, they grab some pieces and pop out in disguise, the makeup job being crazy, but they get found out and chased. It seems lucky to find some canoes, until piranhas find them next and start eating those. Harriet, meanwhile, continues to try and get the professor to do her bidding, having her associate from earlier come out. We also never really get a name for this guy, he really is just the associate, despite his henchmen having names. He threatens Velma if the professor doesn't cooperate, so her uncle gives in, saying to find the temple, they're looking for the base of Pichu Mountain where the two jungle streams join together. This, of course, is a real travel destination in Peru, Pichu meaning mountain peak in the indigenous language. To rub things in, Harriet tells the professor that Velma already met her doom with the zombies and snakes, leaving him in despair to find their treasure. The gang meanwhile arrive to find him, Tiny Scrappy running over to steal the key from a zombie. Thanks to him, they even easily catch the zombies in a trap on the first try for once. There we get the warm reunion of the family.
I was so worried.
Were you worried? The voice acting could have fooled me. They decide to try and catch up, but it seems Harriet and associates already found the temple. Inside, two of them seem to bump into the ancient astronaut ghosts though, but upon closer inspection, they're just the leftover suits. The gang finally make it, also seeing the suits, which gives Daphne an idea. The orb starts glowing for Team Harriet, and it seems the treasure room has opened for them to expose all kinds of wonder. The ghosts of the ancient astronauts, however, walk out to stop them, chasing them off as the helmets reveal the boys underneath.
The treasure looks like a giant egg.
I'd hate to meet the chicken who laid it.
Classic Marla Frumpkin. Scrappy finds this thing, Shaggy saying it looks like a million-year-old computer, but Scoob drops it and it starts going crazy, the roof opening as everything shakes. Suddenly these things walk over, saying they've been trying to get their spaceship to work for 6,000 years and Scoob did it in 6 minutes. The egg-shaped thing was the spaceship for these actual ghosts of the ancient astronauts in one of the cases of real supernatural entities, and as part of their things they even caught and tied up Harriet and associates. Their ship flies off, up into space, taking the professor's archaeological find with them. And that's the ghosts of the ancient astronauts. For sure a different episode, and maybe leaning into the Indiana Jones parody similar to the other parodies we've seen in this series, but I think it fares a lot better. Rather than feeling like we're stuck in a lame and unfitting parody, it feels like it's still a Scooby episode. This certainly is helped by having Fred and Velma around, even with who's voicing her, just helping to ensure we have the classic dynamic, though Daphne does still have moments of being the leader. It wasn't unusual for the gang to be traveling to some random place far off for a mystery, so this episode feels like it fits in better than most of these. I think I'd still put it on the low end of the best episodes, typically the two-parter full ones, but it's still good for what it is. Are the zombies real? Maybe, they don't say Harriet paid them. The aliens certainly were real, and that's the weird thing this era was often experimenting with. I don't know that I love it here, but for what this episode is, it doesn't take away from it. We're mostly proving that Scooby just doesn't work well in 12-minute episodes as it does in 20+. At least we got a minute-long hoedown. Let's see what the next one has to offer us. Episode 7, Part 1, The Night of the Living Toys, originally aired October 20th, 1984. It's kind of giving vaguely Christmas with the elves and toys even though it's not, so I'm surprised it's never made it to any holiday or winter-themed DVD compilations. This is another that's never reached home video. The gang are on the way to the biggest toy store around in the world's creepiest forest, and Scrappy is ready with his wish list. They're here to solve who's stealing the store's profits. Arriving at the Black Forest toy shop. The Black Forest is actually a real location in Germany as well. Inside we see this fake elf decoration with all of the toys, where the owner, Herr Dreisbach, greets them, introduces his assistant Mr. Sigmund, and we even see great-grandfather's photo, the original store founder. Behind it is his safe, where all of the money has been disappearing from. The two men say the suspects are the elves, and that the great-grandfather built the store over the Elf King's castle, who's returned to reclaim his property. Scoob gets a fright from the fake elf, and then Scrappy gets puppy-napped by this lady, Katharina Kobold, head of the stuffed toys department, who covers him in little bows. In German folklore, a kobold is a mischievous mythical creature or somewhat humanoid evil spirit, so that tells me we might need to keep an eye on this lady. The owner never found the treasure his great-grandfather supposedly found, but Daphne promises to solve this. He feels he might need to accept the offer to be bought out by another toy store though, which Mr. Sigmund agrees with as the little elf laughs. Late in the night, Scoob gets another scare from some elf puppets. Sure are a lot of elf-themed things here, but the boys get tangled in the strings, separating the puppets, who then run off alive and free. They meet with a bigger elf, the king perhaps, who runs after them, not quite seeing through their disguises that once again have them as babies. The others hear them fall and run over, shocked at what the boys say, and Daphne finds a lab report for Katharina Kobold with an address. She apparently wanted the lab to analyze mineral content of a brick. They decide to split up, Daphne faking an accidental slip of the Scooby snacks to force the boys downstairs, while she and Scrappy see the elves with their own eyes. He even simply commands the little toy robot to open the safe, and it hands him the money to leave with. Daphne then reads the quote from the great-grandfather more closely. Treasure your foundations, for its bricks will build your future. I'm sure you put together how that relates to the treasure that was never found. The boys meanwhile find themselves in a scuffle with Mr. Sigmund, who angrily warns them to get out before the elves turn them into toys. They laugh at it, yet an elf hand turns on the conveyor belt and does just that, addressing them to the toy company wanting to buy the store, with even a familiar address. The others free the boys from their toy prison, flying into the brick wall, and one of the bricks is oddly missing. They realize all of the packages here also are addressed to that other toy company. Here comes the evil Elf King though, starting a fight between he, his minions, and the gang. Just as it seems the Elf King has Scrappy though, the boys crash into them and inadvertently catch him. Daphne unmasks him to reveal Katharina Kobold. Shocker. Both the elf and the safe cracker. She had a remote in her glove to make the toy in the safe open it from the inside, then stuff her toy bears full of money and mail them to the other toy company, which was in reality her own address. She offered to buy the store with the money she stole from it. She wanted the hidden treasure, which Dreisbach doesn't believe in by now, but Daphne knows where to find it. Following his great-grandfather's quote about bricks and foundation, Katharina thought more of it and took the missing brick in the wall to have it analyzed. Daphne knowing now what she'd found. The dogs start spraying the wall, revealing the building foundation to be solid gold. A real treasure after all. And that's the night of the Living Toys. I actually think this is another strong episode that I like and would watch again, so it ranks highly in the show for me. Living Toys is always a fun concept, especially when it's vaguely scary, and elves being evil or at least mischievous is also neat to explore over just being Santa's helpers. If this was a longer one, it would have been nice to hear or see more about the Elf King. I feel like there was something even more interesting to develop here than 12 minutes allows for. His design is still good though, even if it's not scary, but I don't think it needed to be this time. Mr. Sigmund is an interesting red herring. I don't fully get why he's so desperate for the owner to sell and probably put him out of a job potentially. Katharina is an obvious villain reveal, but it's still fun to have a lady, especially one who presents so sweet, to be the twist, so I'll let it pass. Why was a robot in the safe to begin with though? And how did she figure all that out and have the remote ready? How did the puppets walk on their own? How was she meeting the collect on delivery requirements? And while we're asking questions, how does the building foundation being gold make sense, when that would not be durable, would be expensive, hard to extract without it damaging the building now, and where did he get the treasure from the supposed Elf King? How did he keep it a secret, etc, etc? There are just a lot of questions. The most important thing though is, does it feel like a Scooby episode? And this one does. So this is officially an approved episode, if a little underdeveloped and maybe in need of some more answers. Let's check out the second half now. Episode 7 Part 2 is titled South Pole Vault, another one to never grace home video. We open up in Antarctica, to no surprise, where this little baby penguin is taking a bath. The gang meanwhile is driving the van out here at the South Pole. Scooby very well bundled up for the cold, as they arrive at the scientific research camp.
Where all the a criminal-type sabotage took place.
This baby penguin just keeps getting into trouble, while this man, Dr. Carlin, director of research here, rushes to greet them. He called them here as detectives because of the frightening things happening. Heading inside from the snow, he explains they do important work with penguins and sea lions, but an evil force has sabotaged their research. Someone stole all the helium tanks for the weather balloons, for instance, but they also broke into the vault and stole all of the research. The dude then locks Scrappy inside, and I feel like it's on purpose because he says he opens this thing constantly as the only one who knows how, yet somehow now he forgets the combination? Like, sure. Somehow this random guy walks up, also knows the combination despite what Dr. Harlan said about being the only one, and frees Scrappy, then just walks back out. That was apparently Virgil, part of the research crew, and Daphne picks up on the discrepancy, so Dr. Carlin agrees it's sus that he can open it. Before he's done, he also drops the rumor that one of the large sea lions has gone mad, and some believe this highly intelligent monster is the culprit of all this. Daphne isn't buying that, but she has the boys go check it out anyway, while she and Scrappy question the camp crew. We spend some time with the boys trying to get the sea lions to confess, the baby penguin showing up again, but nothing comes of it. The other two meanwhile are using the facade of a poll to get info, every person just wanting to leave, as Dr. Carlin apparently won't let them until the research is found. The boys run by, being chased by the sea lions, and dash to safety without the penguin. They see the other man when a trunk starts floating, which apparently belongs to Virgil. Scrappy opens the trunk and discovers stolen helium tanks, which Virgil can't explain. Scrappy's sure they have their man, but Daphne isn't sure as he wants to leave like everyone else, and the saboteur wants to keep everyone here. This fuck-ass penguin meanwhile is still screwing around, getting Scooby dragged into the water by the mad sea lion, and then getting caught. Scoob rescues it and gets a big kiss, and now they know this particular monster is real. But before they can warn anyone, it sends a giant snowball after them. They end up rolling back down though, right over it, and shockingly it speaks out loud and in English. Daphne unmasks it, revealing Dr. Carlin himself, who was sabotaging himself the whole time. He stole his research, framed Virgil, and sabotaged everything. He wanted publicity and attention, to win the Nobel Prize, and to end up on talk shows. He's taken into custody, allowing the rest of the team to finally go home. And Scooby has made friends with all the penguins now, wearing a matching tuxedo. All the penguins are removing theirs as well when he sheds his.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo!
And that's South Pole Vault. Not quite as strong as the first half of this episode. This does meet my criteria of mostly feeling like proper Scooby. The issue with this one is just feeling like it's true filler. The villain feels super undercooked and lazy. The location and mystery are really underdeveloped and doesn't feel like they have any grounding. And the baby penguin is the most clear example of just trying to fill time. Not one of the worst, but this is not a top episode for this show and falls into the forgettable category for me. There's so much I left out just because it does not matter to anything. The Living Toys is a much better time spent. I hardly even have anything to say for this one, it's simply uninteresting. This is where I would talk about Episode 8, A Halloween Hassle at Dracula's Castle, which aired originally on October 27th, 1984. However, this Paul Dini-helmed classic episode, one of the few true highlights of the show and one of the two-parter full episodes, has already been covered on this channel separately a few years ago, so there's really no need to talk about it here. If you want to hear about that one and haven't seen that video yet, feel free to just go check it out after this. The next episode is another two-parter full episode, and technically, I have also already discussed this episode on the channel as well that same year, but I didn't really cover the full episode. Only what truly related to Scooby's parents for the family tree video. So I'll toss you a bone for this one and still talk about the whole thing here. Episode 9, A Night Louse at the White House, originally aired November 3rd, 1984. Being a full episode, Velma is indeed back again, though this is her final appearance in this series, not returning until a pup named Scooby-Doo, and Fred is not back at all for this go-round. This one also made it to DVD thanks to the Rut-Row Robot DVD, counted as 2 episodes to really get that 13-episode count up there, while there meanwhile is legitimately not a single robot in this episode, so it's literally taking up 2 episode spaces on that set without any justification for even one spot to be taken by it in the first place. We fittingly open at the White House, the gang attending a banquet thanks to Velma. She gets pulled for an interview because of her status as an assistant research scientist at NASA as established earlier. They want to know about the new space station, but it's all pretty secret still. On a computer, only the president and key officials can access. The interviewer moves on to the ambassador of Klopstokia, a fictional country invented for the 1932 W.C. Fields comedy film $1 Million Legs, a country with a high population of spies. The ambassador and his wife have accents, being foreign, though they lean particularly Swedish. We then move to Senator Bull Bullhorn and his wife, who have been against the space station. And interestingly, the Bullhorns sound like Foghorn Leghorn, the Looney Tunes character who often says "I say," and repeats himself with his southern accent, which both of these two also do. The American president walks out to make the formal announcement, but a terrifying sound rings out, the ghost of George Washington standing in the doorway here to reclaim his home. Everyone floods out, while Scooby leaves the kitchen knowing none the wiser, bumping into Washington, and this statue he seemed to have falls out and onto Scooby's plate. Scoob runs away and trips, the statue flying across the room where Scrappy finds it and realizes it's a brass eagle. Definitely a clue. We're for sure in some good old Americana again, the boys donning some costumes to tell Washington the redcoats are coming and other various things to ditch him. The others have a trap waiting, but it's Scooby who runs into it, the press and Secret Service ready to film and take him into custody, being asked if he as the accused has anything to say.
I want my mumsy. What?
Mumsy and Dada Doo start packing immediately, and if you want more on these two, that's all in the family tree video specifically. The Secret Service bring the gang to see the president, and he assures them he knows they're innocent and will let them go if they help him catch the real ghost, which is the one thing the boys won't agree to.
Is that any way for a couple of red-blooded Americans to talk?
Think of our country. Think of your flag.
Think of our blood pressure.
Imagine saying this when Reagan of all people was president. Reagan. Yeah, I'm with the boys. Scrappy is implicit here with Reagan, mind you, so I have officially gone from a Scrappy defender at the start of this video to being on the side of the people. They have a Lincoln photo watching them as Marilyn Maxey shows them out, and she gives them a map of the building and keys to every room to search. The boys, however, bump into Senator Bullhorn, holding NASA's report on the space station, saying the president gave it to him hoping he'd change his mind. They find him to be a sussy baka, but Daphne wants to stick to the clues, like the brass eagle. Marilyn recognizes it to be from the bedpost of one of the 3 guest rooms, so which one is the first thing to figure out? The Deuce plane meanwhile is on the way, Mumsy bringing Scoob's galoshes to be safe. These 3 dress as cleaning ladies, first checking the Klopstockian ambassador's room, finding all the eagles, but noticing he and his wife have their shoes on in bed, saying it's a custom of the country. Next is Senator Bullhorn being visited by these 2 as repairmen, finding all 4 eagles, but again finding he and his wife with shoes on to sleep, saying it's a family custom. On the way to the last room, Scoob sees eyes following him with this painting, a hand even popping out to grab at them. They start to open Marilyn Maxey's room, formerly belonging to President Grant, but his ghost pops out before they can look. The ghost of Theodore Roosevelt then rounds the corner to stop them, so they run past Grant into the room and block off the door. They realize the painting above the bed has the eyes removed, and there's a missing brass eagle which fits perfectly when they put it back on, but a trapdoor suddenly dumps them down. Daphne figures there's something the ghosts want down here when a light shines, but before they can run, the floor collapses. As they hang on for their lives, the light turns out to be Velma and Scrappy, who help them back up, having found a secret passageway in one of the bedrooms too. They also found that someone seems to have been collecting paintings, or as Daphne corrects, switching them with fakes that have eye holes. While Scoob cosplays as Honest Abe, Abe pops out and doesn't seem to be a fan, chasing them back out where they close the secret bookshelf entrance. Daphne believes they've cracked this, while Mumsy and Dada are still on their flight, ready with those galoshes. Daphne gathers the president and everyone else to explain their findings with the paintings, concluding that only one person had access to all the rooms and knew where the brass eagle came from, one Marilyn Maxey. The Secret Service take her away, while Mrs. Bullhorn remarks that the eagle looks like it belongs at the top of a flagpole, the president deciding to keep it for the night. But later, Velma starts to second guess if they were right, and why she would put eye holes in the paintings if stealing them was her only goal. She then points out Washington's ghost said he wanted to reclaim his home earlier, but he never lived here. This was built after his time. Here he comes anyway, having stolen the eagle yet again from the president himself now. They screw around with the spook and get the eagle back, starting a chase, Washington ultimately getting away with it. The president says this is more urgent than it seemed, as Mrs. Bullhorn was right about it being from a flagpole. When located in the underground chamber, the eagle unlocks a secret room that houses the NASA computers. They head to the other entrance, Washington already successfully opening the room, and since he has the key, they can't get into him. He then dashes out, leaving them stunned, as he escapes with what he's come for. They chase him to the roof, where he drops some of it on his way to his partner Abe Lincoln in the helicopter. The boys get stuck on it, while the others hop in the other to chase. The reporter also realizing there's a story happening. As the boys start slipping, Scoob forces them down by tangling up some of what was hanging out at the Washington Monument, the ghosts having to now try and undo the mess while the others catch up. A great chase by the reflecting pool starts, the reporter joining in as a third helicopter enters the chat. Mumsy and Dada Doo are on board to drop down the galoshes, which conveniently land on the ghosts, falling into the reflecting pool. Unmasked, the ghosts are the Klopstockian ambassador and his wife. Spies, like in the movie that inspired their name. So the Secret Service hauled them off, clearing Scooby finally. The next day, they apologized for accusing Marilyn, and I would be a lot more pissed about it than she is. Mumsy and Dada Doo, meanwhile, are dancing with the senator and his wife, the president telling them how appreciated their son is. And here he and his cohorts come in their full Americana cosplay, ready to eat the entire buffet. And that's A Night Louse at the White House. To no surprise, this is one of the better episodes just from being a full-length story, and it's historically important due to Scooby's parents being included. It does also meet the criteria of feeling like Scooby. You've got masked villains, Velma, general continuity, the works. I just don't think it's one of my favorites. It's interesting they don't include Fred, as Frank Welker is still in the episode, so it's not like he was busy, but I guess he fills the leader role and that's kind of Daphne's thing in the show, so he's not always necessary here. The White House makes sense to have hauntings as far as Scooby locations go. There is a lot of documented evidence of spirits there. It's just a little awkward that Reagan is the current president at the time and inspiring the one in the episode, given that he is basically the epitome of evil and why everything is terrible in the current day. He's the actual villain of the episode that they should have been going after. I suppose it's smart to have the foreign ambassador that turns out to be a spy to be from a fictional country from a movie where that country is full of spies, rather than implicating an actual country. There's just kind of nothing especially interesting done with the Americana here. It's been Scooby's thing since the start, and there have been more interesting takes on it over the years before this episode. Marilyn's false arrest also is kind of diabolical. One of the most interesting and memorable things about this one really is just that Scooby's parents appear, which I already had discussed prior, and now that we've gone over it, obviously no robots, so why is it on that robot-themed DVD? One of the better episodes, not a personal fan of it, but I would watch it again, and recommend people watch it for the appearance of the parents and things like that. There are worse episodes of this series. Episode 10, Showboat Scooby and the Dooby-Dooby-Doo-A-Doo, originally aired November 10th, 1984. Like a Halloween hassle, I've decided I will not be covering these two episodes in this video, because I've really already given them a full examination before. Showboat Scooby introduces Dixie Doo, Scooby's cousin, making it very important historically in the Dooniverse, while the Dooby-Dooby-Doo-A-Doo introduces another cousin in Dooby-Dooby-Doo, with equal importance. Despite short runtimes, both episodes are solid and you should check them out if you haven't seen them, the latter being another Paul Dini joint. I cover both of these episodes in the Cousins and the Family Tree videos, so if you want to hear about what went on in these from me, that's where you'll want to head later, as I really get into them over in that one. There's just not a need to repeat it all, unlike with the White House episode that wasn't as fully covered, especially with this video already being so long. We still have some more to go though, so stay strapped in. Episode 11, Sherlock Doo, originally aired November 17th, 1984. This is another one that's surprisingly never made it to home video so far. As you might guess from the title, this is another episode basing itself on some other IP, in this case the Sherlock Holmes stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. We know I've been getting tired of these by now, but let's see if this one is one of the better ones, given that this is one of the full-length episodes. And being such, it does bring back Fred. No Velma though, I guess making up for the White House episode where she came back without him. Strange though, given that she's canonically a Holmes fan. We open up in London, Fred driving the van like the old days, Scooby not quite sure where they are while trying to find the home of Sherlock Holmes for the Mystery Solvers contest. Holmes apparently was a real person in this episode's continuity. Shaggy realizes Scooby's map is for downtown Buffalo and not London, but they make it to Baker Street, just needing to find 221B, Holmes's home, in all the fog. The boys get lost immediately, but see someone a little ways off and ask directions from, but when he turns around, it appears to be the ghastly ghost of Sherlock Holmes himself. They run off and take a dive into some coal, while the other three make it safely to the contest. Stapleton, the contest supervisor, gets everyone's attention, and he is named after Jack and Beryl Stapleton in the Holmes story The Hound of the Baskervilles. The mystery solvers are being asked to solve the mystery of the blue carbuncle, one of the last unsolved cases that Holmes left behind. A carbuncle is an old word for a gemstone, and in this case, the blue carbuncle references a short Holmes story where the mystery wasn't necessarily unsolved, but Holmes refused to turn the culprit into the police, leaving no official record of it. This man, Mr. Lestrade, is named after Inspector Lestrade from the Holmes stories. Miss Adler shows up late, named after Irene Adler, who was the frequent love interest of Holmes in his stories. Stapleton offers her a card with the only clue Holmes left for this mystery, while Iggy and Ziggy Moriarty take one as well. They are of course named after the main antagonist of Holmes, Professor Moriarty. Iggy and Ziggy are also the names of two crows in Hanna-Barbera's Huckleberry Hound. They're kind of giving Thompson and Thompson from Tintin also. As Stapleton asks about the rest of the team, Scrappy hears them in the dumbwaiter, popping out to tell them what they saw outside. The others don't believe it, but Miss Adler says there are legends that Holmes' ghost still walks. Driving out in the fog for the contest, Daphne reads the clue that says take a letter tomb it may concern, below address. Fred wonders if the tomb means a graveyard, and at Petticoat Lane, Daphne figures this might be something, as below address is a petticoat. Iggy and Ziggy meanwhile are following them. The gang search the graveyard for the letter in the clue, when Holmes' ghost appears and says to come with him. Iggy and Ziggy then scare the boys off further, only for the ghost to confront Ziggy as well, saying they're not solving this case. The gang can't find anything, only for the gargoyle mask to show up again, and upon unmasking it, they come face to face with the Holmes ghost again. Now everyone has to believe, while he tells them to follow him again and they'll solve the case. They follow him for a good distance, Mr. Lestrade saying they must know something in following, when he bumps into an old woman, actually a disguise for Miss Adler. The ghost vanishes at the Great Detectives Club, so they head in having to communicate without saying anything. The club is likely a reference to the one run by Holmes' brother Mycroft in the Holmes stories where members are forbidden from speaking. This bald member who likes lollipops also resembles TV detective Kojak, also a fan of lollipops. Iggy and Ziggy meanwhile have infiltrated the club as well, making Shaggy trip, and Mr. Lestrade tosses pepper at Scooby's nose to make him sneeze, as well as this trumpet that Scooby bags up. The boys then see the ghost again, who says the carbuncle is theirs if they follow him. In the Hall of Fame area, he steals E.L.C. Newbrack's blueprints contained there, slamming the lid which sets off the alarm and creates chaos. With the boys at the scene of the crime, Miss Adler accuses them of the theft, pointing to the empty bag as evidence. Mr. Lestrade and Iggy and Ziggy accuse the gang of being accomplices, the constable showing up to arrest them all, and so they remain in jail while the ghost escapes with the blueprints. The inspector continues to interrogate the boys on why they stole the blueprints, but they maintain their innocence. In their cell, Daphne wonders why the ghost stole the blueprints, and the guards inform her that Newbrack, who made them, was a famous detective who designed a foolproof security system for hotels, banks, and the Queen's jewels at Buckingham Palace. He shows that even their very cell security system was designed by him, which Daphne pretends to be scared by, asking what if he forgot the combination to get him to open and prove he knows it. With his back turned, they sneak out, and he gets locked in instead. The boys have given up even speaking in their interrogation, as the rest of the gang show up dressed as fake inspectors themselves to get them out. I love that Daphne has a mustache on, but also a dress, very non-binary tea, and those ugly black shoes are finally useful again. All of them run out and make it to the van, where apparently they have a whole crime computer that Fred prints info about the blueprints with. It seems the one for Buckingham Palace wasn't stolen, as it's on loan to the exhibit at the London Wax Museum. They head there since that's what the ghost really wanted, with just about everybody seeing them pass and thinking they're after the carbuncle, following them. Scooby picks the locked museum door, and somehow Iggy and Ziggy already got in before them. At the exhibit, the ghost steals the blueprints from the wax figure, and I feel like displaying the actual Buckingham Palace blueprints out in the open like that is a bad idea to begin with. Daphne finds something on her finger as the ghost mocks them in his escape, so they chase him down the street, Miss Adler watching as well. Scrappy distracts the palace guards so they can get in, which also is very unrealistic if you've seen those guards. The gang split up in the palace by choice of Daphne.
Well, at least I didn't tell you.
Once again, just easily making it into the Buckingham Palace, worrying about waking up the Queen? Even for the gang, not realistic. The boys hide from the guards and Scooby dons some Queen drag to fool them, while the ghost successfully accesses the jewels and starts bagging them up. Again, we've totally lost what realism we had by now. Scooby sees Scotland Yard on the way, runs into the ghost and exposes himself, so the ghost steals the rest and leaves the blueprints with Scoob, framing he and Shaggy yet again once the others catch up. They start trying to arrest the lot of them, while Scooby finds how the ghost escaped, so Daphne tells them to run for it while she's captured. The boys walk the rope and see the ghost run over the rooftops, running into him on one of them. While Daphne says where the ghost will be headed, they all hear Shaggy scream for help as the ghost corners him on the ledge, Scooby stopping him and saving his friend. Daphne's got this one covered already, unmasking the ghost as Stapleton. He was planning on hiding the jewels at 221B, Baker Street, and retrieving them after the contest. Daphne explains that he left soot on the wax figure when he stole the blueprints, the same soot from when the boys fell out of the dumbwaiter. He ultimately had the best detectives around kept busy so he could commit his crime. Obviously, he had them follow him as the ghost to frame them for the theft. As the other detectives are disappointed there was no real carbuncle, Daphne points out E.L.C. Newbrack, spelled backwards, is carbuncle, and blue was Holmes' code word for the blueprints. The gang is given the award for their help, but they get one last scare courtesy of Scoob.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
And that's Sherlock Doo. You certainly can't say this isn't a busy episode, and it does have all of the important qualifications of classic Scoob. Most of the gang are here, the villain is someone in a mask, it feels like Scooby. I just think it's a little too busy for me. Like we've seen with some of the other homages and parodies in this show, maybe it's cute if you're a big fan of that thing, in this case the Sherlock Holmes stories, otherwise it's hard to keep up with. I had to keep double checking who the characters were because I kept forgetting their names and faces and what they were up to throughout the episode. There's kind of too many of them that are active, all named after characters from the Holmes stories to be able to easily keep things straight. I think the design of the Ghost of Holmes is decent though. There's just enough done to make him a little bit menacing for what he is, and the confusion of what he's trying to do initially by having them follow is a good twist. I think the second half is where it kind of jumps the shark though. This is not a serious series, but there are just too many unbelievable things that start happening by that point. Having Fred back is enjoyable however, and I'd rather him be back on his own than Velma since he at least sounds like himself. One thing I like about this episode is that, even with him here, it still feels like Daphne really is the leader and able to hold things together. It's the kind of thing you don't even get to see these days a lot of the time from her. In the best episodes here, she really does work as a leader with a good character. This one especially, where she fakes out the guard, is reminiscent of some of her other actions in this series, and really shows she has a lot more that she's capable of than she lets on. And the mystery itself at least makes sense here. I don't think I would quite rate this among the most top tier episodes, but it's certainly not at the bottom of this one. And the right person would really enjoy this one. I would probably watch it again without a fuss. It's just a very busy episode. Let's see what the next one has to offer us now that we're almost at the end of our journey. Episode 12, Part 1, A Scary Duel with a Cartoon Ghoul. Originally aired November 24th, 1984. No, I don't know why Scarey is spelled wrong with an E in the title. I can't find an explanation. This is also another one that's not received any home video love either. This time we open up in Hollywood, going to the cartoon studio that makes Hero Hound, Scrappy's favorite. He somehow even has a whole animator's desk in the back of the van, which Scooby promptly destroys in his cosplay. At the studio, their guide Miss Handle shows them her boss and studio head Buster Banana viewing the latest cartoon, leaving them to join. Somehow though, the villain Monster Mutt rips through the screen, running up to destroy the projector and steal the film. Cinderella did leave behind a shoe though. The security guard Dimwitty finally arrives, and apparently isn't very good as this has happened before. So Mr. Banana calls for the nearest detective agency. Scrappy turns his caller into a phone, because of course he can do that, to answer the call and accept the job. He tells them to go undercover as cartoonists, confusing Miss Handle as to why these randos get to make a cartoon. She tells him he'll regret this, and he has the gang get to business, starting with the boot. Unfortunately, a lot of actors are wearing the same boots, and Miss Handle is even more confused as to why they're out here now. They run into another actor, and he drops a can of film just like what was stolen, so they follow him and find a room full of costumes, but also Monster Mutt himself, who reclaims his shoe from Scrappy. While the boys get chased, Daff and Scrap find the actor holding up some of the film, running when they chase, and saying they're messing up the operation and he's changing the plan. Gone through the window. He left a walkie-talkie though, so he's not working alone. Dimwitty tries to force them all to stay put because of Miss Handle's order, but they convince him they need to go to the editing room. With the room being trashed, they realize Monster Mutt was here, and as Scrappy finishes editing their cartoon, the lights go out. Monster Mutt provides a light, but Scrappy knocks him over, everyone rolling out of the room. Scrappy grabs something he thinks is fur, and Daphne realizes it's solved the mystery. Miss Handle comes in to tattle on the gang, but they have her sit to watch the cartoon they finished, which turns into something else, interrupted again by Monster Mutt. Like before, he steals the film, but the real Hero Hound is on the case, tackling the mutt and the film flying into the actor's hand. He says they just caught the most ruthless enemy agent spy in the business, that is to say, Dimwitty, more recognizable with the mustache. The actor is actually a federal agent, as Dimwitty stole film of a top-secret rocket project and got a job here to lay low, where he accidentally misplaced the film and had to go through it all to find it using the Monster Mutt disguise, only for Scrappy to accidentally find it during editing. Miss Handle is thrilled to get rid of the gang, but Mr. Banana still wants to see their work. And that's A Scary Duel with a Cartoon Ghoul. Believe it or not, I'd put this on the higher end for this show. It's fun, the mystery is decent, Monster Mutt is different, but not bad, and it's kind of meta with the animator focus. It mostly feels like Scooby, but does have a bit more of a simple and cartoon feel to it. But maybe that's appropriate when investigating around a cartoon. Miss Handle is annoying, but she's supposed to be, so she does her job, literally. Definitely some filler with the chase scene, which is wild in an already 12-minute max episode, but this is one that doesn't feel like it's underexplained and has everything make sense more than at least some of these. I'd watch this one again and recommend it. I really don't have much to say on it, but I like it for a cute little short. We only have one more to talk about, sadly, however, so let's see how the second half of the episode goes. Episode 12, Part 2 is titled E-I-E-I-O. Like the first half, this never made its own video, and interestingly is the final appearance of the original Mystery Machine design until technically Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase, and in more full force in What's New Scooby-Doo. The gang are investigating a countryside crime. The dog's ready with appropriate hats already, arriving at Old MacDonald's Experimental Institute for Evolutionary Improvement of Organisms, or EIEIO. Scoob starts singing the Old MacDonald nursery rhyme in his overalls, but I guess the chicken didn't love his singing or taking her egg.
Looks like the yolk's on you, Scoob.
Oh.
Old MacDonald, director of the farm, shows up to tell them about the mystery. They do genetic experiments here for greater amounts of food, but someone on the farm is instead doing experiments to create monsters. As an example, he points to this sweet innocent lamb that he calls a genetic demon with a mean streak. Scrappy tests his luck and gets torn a new one. Worse, this person has turned a tiny field mouse into a 30-foot-tall monster. As they head to question employees, we even get a glimpse of this terror. The others having switched to overalls, they confront an assistant, Mr. Memory, who's to show them around under the guise of being new farmhands. He shows them a crazy experiment of a tree that grows PB&J sandwiches, then heads back. Daphne's sure that someone that smart could make a monster. She has the boys follow him while she and Scrap check other areas. They run into Eunice, the milkmaid, who explains that the cow fed with specific cocoa beans they've made can produce 500 gallons of chocolate milk a day. Now that's unbelievable. She spills some on Scrappy, which I feel is a little villainous to give something chocolate to a small dog. She walks away crying out of fear of losing her job because she's constantly screwing up. The boys then see Mr. Memory again and go to follow, then run into another worker instead, Parker. He seems very bored, but shows them the incredibly fast pig anyway, who speeds past the other two and back. Old MacDonald checks in, then calls Parker into his office because of the guy's terrible attitude. The gigantic mouse walks by, destroying everything in its path, when Old MacDonald comes out to say he's solved the mystery. Apparently there was a formula mix-up in the lab that's now been corrected. He says he'll take care of the giant mouse and the rest himself. Shaggy then trips in his escape, finding a monster mouse chow pellet, a trail leading to the milkmaid who's fending it off. During its destruction, a voice calls out to tell it to obey, and Daphne realizes it's under human control. They check out the milkmaid again to see if it's her, and she starts crying because she felt bad for the mouse. It shows up to chase them again, headed for some wires that would electrocute it, so Scooby stops to head back and save it. It gives him an appreciative kiss, while the voice commands it to attack again, but instead it heads over and attacks the sound, exposing Old MacDonald himself. But Daphne realizes it's not really him, but a fake, Parker falling unmasked. He wanted to take over the farm and make millions off the formulas, and he also was just bored. Scoob hears and saves the real Old MacDonald, and Daphne reveals she could tell Parker was a phony because Old MacDonald needs glasses to see, while Parker can't see with them and wasn't wearing any. The milkmaid cries, and Mr. Memory offers them the monster mouse, now shrunken back to its original size, and it still loves Scooby after earlier.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
And that's EIEIO. Well, the goodwill I had for the overall 12th episode didn't last. This is close enough to the somewhat Scooby vibe, but it's another that just feels like it's filler. The Old MacDonald thing isn't any better than any other parodies plaguing this series, and there isn't anything especially interesting. The experiments and creations at the farm being downright unrealistic in the most cartoony ways possible. Not only is the milkmaid obnoxious, but Parker is also hardly an interesting villain, who doesn't even show up for the longest time. And it's lame to have a motive just be, he was bored. It makes it all the more surprising that he really randomly was one of the villains they chose to spotlight as an escapee in the 2022 film Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo. I had to go back through the film during writing this to confirm for myself and was shocked when I laid eyes on him. This is not a memorable episode, and I don't think I see myself revisiting it. That's all I have to say on this one. This is where I would cover the series finale, episode 13, The Nutcracker Scoob, which originally aired December 1st, 1984. Another two-part full-length episode, this is easily the most well-known and remembered episode of the entire series, re-released many times on home video. I will not be covering it here today though, as this episode also has already been covered a few years ago on the channel in a still very nice video. So if you want to hear about that one, you can also go ahead over to that after this one. Still no point in repeating it just for the sake of it. It's the most released episode for a reason though, it's a classic. And that completes our journey through the 1984 series, The New Scooby-Doo Mysteries. I know people on the internet love rankings, so I will now rank all of the episodes for you among 3 categories. First is the must-see category, then the decent category, and finally just the skip category. This is my personal ranking on what I liked and what I would watch again and recommend others to watch. Starting with the must-see category, these are episodes I think all Scooby fans should check out at least once if they haven't, some maybe even being true required viewing. The episodes ranked in must-see are Episode 1, Happy Birthday Scooby-Doo, 5.1 Doom Service, 7.1 The Night of the Living Toys, 8 A Halloween Hassle at Dracula's Castle, 9 A Night Louse at the White House, 10.1 Showboat Scooby, as well as 10.2 The Dooby-Dooby-Doo-a-Doo, and lastly the series finale, 13 The Nutcracker Scoob. For the decent category, these are the episodes I would still say are worth checking out and I would watch again. They just are not the best, maybe a little more silly or not quite there. The decent episodes are 2.1 Scooby's Peep-Hole Pandemonium, 3.1 Scooby or Not Scoo-Be, 4.2 The B-Team, 6 6, Ghosts of the Ancient Astronauts, 11, Sherlock Doo, and 12.1, A Scary Duel with a Cartoon Ghoul. Last up is the skip section. These are episodes I really just found to be not good, or straight filler with nothing important, or maybe I just hated them in some cases, so I'd say you could skip these. It's all personal taste though, so maybe you would like them, and maybe you already love them. For me, the skips are 2.2, The Hand of Horror, 3.2, The Stoney Glare Stare, 4.1, Mission Undoable, 5.2, A Code in the Nose, 7.2, South Pole Vault, and 12.2, E-I-E-I-O. Surprisingly, most of the episodes would fall into the overall pretty good and worth watching, or even just decent categories, so I'd say this one still ranks as mostly fine Scooby material for what it is. Is it as good as any of the Scooby shows before it? No, definitely not. But it's pretty solid mid-tier stuff, hardly at rock bottom for the franchise, but I did get pretty tired of it at times, so I would say it was valid that they went back to the drawing board after this and gave us the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, as well as a pup after this. The formula sometimes still had some magic, but it was just about used up by this time. I'm glad I've seen this entire 1984 run. I'll surely return to some of it later, and it has enough memorable moments to not forget it. But this video also is quite long, and I'm happy to be done with watching these episodes for it. Hopefully you liked watching for this long, or maybe chunks at a time, if you're still here. I don't know what possessed me and forced me to do this. And if you want to hear about the episodes I already covered, go check out the Family Tree, Halloween Hassle, and Nutcracker Scoob videos after. I'm hoping the next video is not this long. Whatever it is, I'll see you when I see ya. Bye!